This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
Welcome back, everybody. So we are social creatures. We crave connection, and with that comes relationships, and relationships come in all different forms, whether it's a romantic partnership, whether it's a relationship at work, you have friends, you have your family. How do you navigate through those relationships? It's not easy. I don't have to tell you that. And sometimes you need some help for that, and I've got somebody for that to help us navigate and give us some insights, some tips on how to do that. He is an amazing therapist, counsels people in all different forms, family counseling, individuals, and he's back with us. Eric John Tanner is on the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And yourself?
Fantastic. And
good to hear. Good to hear.
Thank you. I'm intrigued to talk about relationships because this is everywhere, but it always comes down to what we hear, the one thing, communication. Is that really the baseline for a good relationship?
Yes, it's really important. A lot of times you can be talking back and forth because of perception and the way we interpret things. When we're discussing things, it's like I'm speaking French and you're speaking Spanish, but we're both speaking English and we're not understanding each other. We have misunderstanding, which causes issues in any relationship. And then the breakdown of that relationship can deteriorate, and then you no longer have that connection anymore.
We could probably do 10 podcasts on relationships. As you're talking, I'm seeing the road ahead. Like there's so many different areas where we could go with this.
Yeah.
When we talk about communication, one thing really comes back for me, and I've looked into it more in the last year and saw that it really applies to not just romantic relationships, but all. And that's the 5 love languages, which has been around forever.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. And that's one of the things that can be helpful is understanding what is your love language in platonic or romantic relationships, understanding that if you want to grow the relationship, then you're going to want to find out what feeds them, what helps them feel that love. And often tell people when they're in challenging situations, in more of a romantic situation, and they come to me and say, I just don't have the feeling anymore. I'm not in love anymore. I love her. I love him. And I always say, well, why don't you go home and love them? What do you mean? I just told you I don't have the feeling. I'm not talking about love the feeling. I'm talking about love the verb. What did you do when you first fell in love? You did love the verb, and then love the feeling will come back.
Interesting. And the more and more I look at the love languages, there's so much validity in it and how it applies.
Right.
You think about that. Let's go hypothetical. A relationship, husband and wife. Same basic situation that you described, where he may do these amazing things. Like I redid, the garage. I redid a backyard. I redid all of this for you. Look at what I've done for you. And she's like, yeah, well, that's great. Because he thinks that acts of service, maybe he likes them. So he thinks that she likes them. So I'm going to do this for you. And that's his way of showing love. She's like, no, I just want, could be affection, could be your time. But he's thinking, I'm pouring it on, baby. I'm giving you it.
Right. Yeah.
I just spent 14 weeks redoing our house for us. We spent a lot of money and I did it. Look at it. And it doesn't even resonate with her. Yeah, I appreciate it, but that's it. You're not going to know until you really dive deeper into it, right?
Yeah. Not only do you have your own love language, but sometimes the way you feel love could be a different love language. And sometimes the way you give love can be different.
Yeah.
So I may want to give love with gifts, but I feel love with affirmation. And so you kind of have to understand how you give and receive and understand that difference. I'll share a personal story. It's my first Valentine's Day after I married my wife. And I was like, okay, I sent her a nice bouquet of flowers. It was like $75. We didn't make a lot of money at that time. And so that was a lot. That was a huge expense. And all her coworkers were like, oh, I wish my boyfriend would do that. Oh, and she came home and said, never do that again. Like, why? Well, they're going to die in a week. If you want to, go to a grocery store and get a $5 bouquet. But if you really want to impress me, go home and clean the kitchen. And I go, oh,
yeah.
But I want to buy you something. That's so much easier than cleaning the kitchen. I learned early on that she really likes acts of service. and that really is something that really shows in her that she's feeling loved. And so I learned that, okay, well, I need to, clean the house once in a while. And, she will do the laundry. And if I do it for her and pick up when she's not feeling well, oh, that's really appreciative of her. She feels that appreciation from me. And I got to know that, okay, what do you want for your birthday? Oh, you don't have to buy me anything. What? I want to buy you something. So I'll get her something small.
Danger, 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 danger.
Right. I'll still get her something, but I have to think of acts of service as the bigger thing, you know.
It could be a coupon that you made on your computer that says redeemable,
right.
For an hour of time for me to take care of whatever. This reminds me, I got to share this because it's in my head. About 10 years ago, I've done morning radio forever, and this was a topic on the air where the man sent her flowers. Thought that was it, like that. This is it. She wasn't happy. And she actually emailed in for us to talk about this on the air.
Oh yeah.
And you know what it was? She wanted the flowers sent to her job so she could show her coworkers everything. He sent the flowers to the home.
To the house. Yeah.
Like it's almost sometimes a no-win situation. I don't know. Wow.
Right.
Was that, one more on the 5 love languages. When you first saw them, did it immediately resonate with you? Oh, yeah, that's me. Right away. Right out of those 5, you know right away. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, it really helped you understood, could be something missing in your childhood to, this is a way that I really feel appreciative of this because it's more meaningful for me. Maybe I lacked that growing up. And so physical touch doesn't have to be sexual. The caress of the back of the head to, holding hands or just, sitting next to each other on the couch. Those are all can be physical touch. And I learned that was my love language. And I really crave that. I want that. I didn't get that, in certain aspects of my life. And so that's really meaningful for me. And so when we can do that, I love it. I just love that physical touch.
I relate, and that's mine too. Like I would put that top, and maybe the second one, words of affirmation. I don't need acts of service. I don't need gifts or nothing. Yeah.
Right. So it can be really helpful to do that and recognizing that you can understand that, but to take that to another level, I like to introduce a thing called the emotional bank account. I mean, if you kind of think about it, that let's say your job is to fill your partner's emotional bank account, and her job is to fill yours. And if you think about it, it's subjective. It's going to be different. And in order to grow, you have to become vulnerable and you learn what you like and dislike, even if you just don't understand why they like it. That is something they appreciate. And so, okay, anything that helps the relationship is a deposit, helping grow that emotional bank account. Anything as a withdrawal hurts the relationship. And so, when I challenge couples, we have hard and fast boundaries we don't break, like, complete fidelity in marriage. That's really important for most people. We're not going to break that. But for a lot of things, that's really subjective and it's based on personal preference. And so it's like, okay, if I'm completely right in the situation, it can still be withdrawal. And I apologize for that withdrawal. I don't want to hurt the relationship. And so if you have too many withdrawals, if you start stepping on each other's toes too much, then, we lack empathy for each other because we can't feel each other's pain anymore. And we're only listening to respond instead of listening to understand. And it's just purely transactional. And so if you think about it, you do this for me, I do that for you, or you didn't do that for me. But if you can start thinking about ways to fill that emotional bank account and start to climb, you have a reserve. So when you have a cushion, you make a mistake, it's easier to forgive. And then you can transform that relationship and go from transactional to transformation.
So you said the word infidelity, part of relationships. So let's put the little microscope on that right there. It's an age-old question, but why do people cheat?
Well, you can say it's cliche, but the grass is greener on the other side. Sometimes when you see too many red flags in the relationship, you search for what is missing outside the relationship. And I try to challenge people to say, instead of turning away from each other, let's turn towards each other. And a lot of times when you see all those red flags, you're not giving me my love language. I'm not feeling appreciation or all these other things you need in a relationship. Well, you know what? What if we looked for those white flags in the relationship? People fight. People don't get along all the time. You talk to couples who've been married for 30, 40 years and they're still madly in love. But yeah, there's days I didn't like you. I still loved you, but I didn't like you. And
Mm.
we fought, we disagreed, but how did we come back from that? And so it's not so much the arguments or the fights, it's the repair afterwards. I say look for those white flags of peace and repair and find what helps bring you back together where you're moving towards each other instead of away from each other. And that can strengthen you for the next time that, hey, we're resilient. We can bounce back from a challenge. And I'm not looking outside of a relationship for something I feel like I'm missing.
Do you feel that a large percentage of people cheat because of unresolved issues, challenges, things from, let's say, their childhood? I feel that that's part of it, but
Yeah.
where do you think that would sit, even on a 10 scale? When 10 being that's the reason for every action of infidelity. It's not,
Yeah.
but where do you think you would put that?
Well, I think it's a combination, and every situation is unique.
For sure.
I think that in society we have, you know, kind of clarifying expectations is big. When it comes to, knowing what your role is in a family. You have your childhood, you see other people's, examples. And so imagine you come into the marriage without any expectations or clear expectations. What do we stand for? I've seen so many people plan for a marriage, plan for a wedding. I was talking to someone who spent like $75,000 putting their kid's wedding together. I'm like, well, that's a down payment on a house. Anyways, I didn't say that, but that was my gut reaction. I thought, so many of these people plan for the marriage, or plan for that wedding, and plan, but they don't plan for the marriage. And
Mm,
so, imagine starting a new job and you start tomorrow and there's no job description. There's no expectations of what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just figure it out. The cause of almost all relationship difficulties rooting in that conflict of ambiguous expectations around roles and goals. Whether you're dealing with questions, who does the work, or how do you communicate with your daughter when you tell her to clean her room, or who feeds the fish, or who takes out the garbage, you can be certain that unclear expectations will lead to misunderstanding, disappointment, and withdrawal of that trust. And so when you have a withdrawal of trust in that emotional bank account, then you start questioning, and you
mm,
have micro justifications for behavior. I just look online and get my pleasure from pornography, or I can go to a club and just talk to somebody. I'm not going to do, and little tiny behaviors of justification before all along, oh wait, I'm actually in an affair. And
yep.
so there's a lot of micro thought processes that justification. And so really we have a lot of implicit expectations, and really to make a deposit is to make those expectations clear and explicit in the beginning. And so having that conversation, how are we going to do discipline? What are we going to do when it comes to conflict? And so, challenging people to understand, how do we discuss these things? And there's a thing called the fair fighting rules, and we don't have time to go through each one of them, but there's a way to agree.
Mm,
If we have conflict, like using I statements, I feel this way, instead of saying, you're such a slob, I can't believe how messy you are. Well, I feel frustrated when the kitchen's a mess. You're addressing the behavior, not the character of the person. And so you discuss that in the beginning. Can we address the behavior, a concern, and decide what to do with it there, instead of attacking the character of the person, which causes resentment, and then you're pulling away from the relationship instead of pulling together.
expectations seems to be a big thing. Cue the five love languages once again,
Right.
because those set the expectations. But even business relationships, even partnerships,
Right.
my life lesson here is a trust thing. I trust everyone, and then I find out that's a really bad idea. But even entering into partnerships with people,
Mm-hmm.
handshake, yeah. No, it needs to be in writing. It needs to be
Right.
defined. It
Yeah.
needs to be
I tell people that. Well
expectations.
defined.
Exactly. And I guess that does apply to marriages and romantic relationships, where
Mm-hmm.
I really feel before you get married, therapy. You
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
doing therapy, because things are
Right.
going to come out that are going to you're going to understand the other person, and most importantly, yourself better by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. It's like there's one person put it this way: there's three stages of love. The first stage of love is called the yearning stage. It's high chemical, low clarity, and commitments untested. In this stage, your partner can do no wrong. You're blind to their flaws.
Mm,
The chemicals are heightened. Hollywood does that. They like to show a lot of teen romance movies or chick flicks where it's like, oh, take your glasses off, now you're perfect. There's no flaws, but then that wears off after a time. It's called the honeymoon stage.
Yep.
And then you go into the earning stage, which is uh, you have to earn each other's love. There's low chemicals, high clarity, and commitments in question. In this stage, both partners are in a transactional relationship, and each partner needs to earn each other's love. And you start to aware of each other's flaws. Typically, you keep track of what's going on. You keep score and a tally of the good and the negative things you do. So sometimes it may be hard to have empathy for each other's pain, and so it can be a challenge. And there's more like passive and aggressive communication is present, and so it can be really hard to navigate out of that. But the final stage I call the enduring stage. That's when chemicals are irrelevant, is not important, clarity is crystal clear, and commitment is enduring. And because I have a high trust account, or that bank account super high, I don't care what you do, I will love you no matter what. And if it's reciprocal, then you can stay pretty high and it's enduring, and no matter what you do, I share my love and I do it for you because I choose to. And that's where you want to get to and get out of that. You get stuck in that second stage, the earning stage. But it has to be transformational in a positive way, because you can transform out of the relationship as well as transforming towards each other, where you can kind of see what is your secret. When you talk to someone who has 40, 50 years of marriage, you're like, what's your secret? And I always ask that when I hear that, because I always find it fascinating. What did you do through those difficult times? Well, it was enduring because we had such an ability to read each other and fill that emotional bank account. We had a high trust account, and we could navigate those challenges a lot easier.
What about the evaluation of your life? I hear that typically it's every 5 years ish, moving target there, that we take a look at our lives. Well, you're in a marriage, you're in a relationship, whatever it is. Like, you look and say, is this supporting me? You may not even consciously be doing it, but you're doing it. And then I hear it takes 2 years to make a decision where you want to go. And that's why they call it the 7-year itch. And I actually look back, my life, relationships, everything.
Right.
I gotta say that it seems to be true. And it's almost as if something presented a challenge even every 7 years. Coincidence? Maybe. But
Yeah.
I'd love your feedback on that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting to kind of see you have to work at it. You have to have a active focus on the relationship and say, I just can't take it for granted. Oh, you know what? A lot of times I got married, I won the prize, I wooed her,
Right.
and now I don't have to do anything more. And you stop dating each other, you stop doing things with each other, and you stop loving them as a verb, and you rely on the feeling to sustain that relationship. And so after a period of time, that love, the feeling will wane. And so it's, you have to have a active focus on that relationship and say, you know what, take your wife on a date, go out with your husband and, get a babysitter for the kids. You need to, do that. They're looking at the red flags in the relationship that can make us want to leave, but the white flags, start to appreciate who your partner is again. There's a thing called a love map where you can actually start interviewing your partner and tell them what you already know about them and get in their inner world of how they think and feel, almost like you're getting to know them for the first time. And
Yep.
you can go through all these questions and really ask, like, if you don't remember, what did you wear on our first date? Or what is it, what is your deepest worry? Or where do we see ourselves when we're in retirement? Things like that, where we can kind of see each other's world viewpoint and resonate with that and show appreciation for that. And that can be a that white flag or a piece in repair, where if I come back and look at what is our commitment, what was that promise we made. I challenge someone to do this when they first get married. Write a love letter to each other, and we open it in 5 years.
Mm.
Say why I love you, why I fell in love with you, and you only open it when you have a challenge in the relationship.
Oh,
Whether it's 3 to 5 years later, and you give it to each other. You don't open it, you put it away, and you open it up, and it's kind of a reminder of how you felt. And it's really fascinating when you interview with someone that's struggling and you ask them about that. You can kind of see what they recall. If they start recalling a lot of negative things in the beginning because they've kind of forgotten, or they start remembering what they really valued, you can see there's still a chance you can help them in that relationship. There's still some commitment, even if it's small, to reinvigorate that love the feeling by working on love the verb.
You know what I just saw here, Eric, come even clearer with everything that you're saying, that and using the notion that, you know, we're all always evolving. So you marry somebody 5, 10 years later. Think of it this way. It's a different person.
Right? Yeah.
Because it is. They
Absolutely.
different values. You know, the core is still the same, but there's going to be things that make you happy. You might discover new things in yourself, things that, you know, feel good, if you will. You know, all different things things are changing. And to your point, you know, go on dates, whatever. You're dating a new person.
Right, exactly. I've seen this happen where it's like, hey, we stay together because of the kids. The kids are out of the house. Now we're about to retire. It's just going to be us all the time. And they've grown so far apart instead of grow towards each other. That transformation was away from each other. Now they're just roommates. They have nothing in common. They don't know who they are. And now they're spending all this time together and they don't know each other. Yep. And then they, you know, it's like, oh yeah, we were married for 40 years and got a divorce. Like 40 years? 40 years. And yeah, when did it start, you know, changing? Oh, about 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. We just started growing apart and got caught up in our professions and our lives, and we're just like roommates. And it's like,
oh, that's such a classic term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tragic because I'm like, you built a life together and now it's like it's over, you know, because they didn't work on it. They didn't attend the little things. You know, here's a little story, more of a father-son relationship, where the story of a father that has a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and he's sitting there going, oh, we're going to watch a movie for the first time. We're going to stay up super late. And so the 4-year-old fell asleep and he put his coat over him and carried him to bed, came back, and the 6-year-old stayed up the whole time watching the movie. And he was so proud of him. I just first time watching a movie this late. And so as he's walking his 6-year-old to his room, he noticed his little boy starting to cry. And tears in his eyes, he started like looking at his dad and said, Daddy, if I were cold, would you put a coat around me too? And his whole thought changed from, oh, I had this enjoyable time, to my son was only focusing on I put the coat on the 4-year-old instead of me. People are very tender, very sensitive inside. Age, experience doesn't make a difference. Inside, even with the most toughest and callous exteriors, are those tender feelings and emotions of the heart. I always say that inner child. And so sometimes it's like, I can have this facade for so long, but inside I feel like I'm dying. You know, I'm not getting what I need. And that little kid that just wants to be held. And it's like, oh, can we be vulnerable with each other, even if we've grown apart, and come back and work on that repair and say, yes, that relationship can be brought back. And one way that I challenge people to do when you have differences of opinion, I know we're almost out of time, but scale level of importance. When you have a disagreement or an opposition, you scale 0, I don't care, to 10, this is most important thing. And you could say, okay, I want to, you know, do this one thing. And so whoever's higher on level of importance, because it will fill their emotional bank account, you say you can have that win, and vice versa. Here's a challenge in a relationship. I had a couple that the gentleman felt that his partner was talking too much, and then he got a little ticky and pokey and started using a hand gesture of mocking over and over again, and it shot her down. And so I scaled that on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 the thing you hate the most. How is that hand gesture? I'm an 8 or a 9 on that. It just really bothers me. It shuts me down. I asked the gentleman, he said, how important is for you to use that hand gesture in a conversation? Like a 3 or a 4. It's not that important. I had no idea that affected you that way. Okay, I can stop that behavior. And so, you know, you can kind of use that scale of level of importance by, you know, say, you know, a lot of times we're not always deadlocked on level of importance, and you have to compromise in those situations. But a lot of times, if I give you that win, if it's more important to you, I'm not that strong on it, then we can reciprocate and we can feel, oh, wow, you're sacrificing, let me have that win. And we can do it back and forth for each other. And that's how you can kind of recognize why that person is so set on that thing that they want in the relationship.
Thank you for all the insight here. And again, we could just keep going. Like there's so many different ways to look at relationships, how to repair them. Yeah, and as we say, every situation is different. Eric, what's the best way to connect with you if somebody's going through some challenges, whether it's individuals, couples, families? How do we find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website at imcsolutionsllc.com, or you can reach me at 779-212-4721.
This was fantastic today. I really mean that. Thank you. Good
You have
stuff.
a good one too.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.